Alright, so we're fixing to shoot a video of the basic setup and basket controls on the SD64. Alright, to start the engine, you need to make sure that the key is turned to the basket controls at the ground level controls. Make sure the emergency stop button is pulled up. Turn this switch to on. And then either preheat using the glow plugs or just start the engine. Alright, to operate any of the functions of the machine, you have to either step on the dead man switch down here on the floor or push this button for enable. Alright, so driving the Nifty lift is pretty straightforward. You have this knob here which adjusts the displacement of the variable displacement pump. This lever moves forwards and backwards to drive the machine forwards and backwards. It's also proportional. There's an enable switch for the drive functions on the back side of the joystick right here that you have to squeeze while you're doing anything related to the drive system. To steer the front axle, you use this switch up here, and that's left and that's right. Back here, if you push this left, the back of the tires moves the direction that you're pushing. Alright, so if you're just going straight, we'll just set the throttle to slow speed, and since I'm running with one hand, you step on the enable pedal, squeeze the back pedal, and then just push this forward to move forwards, or pull it backwards to come backwards. Now, let's say that you're trying to go at high speed. Well, there's a couple things you can do, and one, you can't do it with one hand, but you turn this knob all the way up, and then the drive speed is a lot faster. And another thing you can do is switch the engine speed from low to high. Then when you step on the enable pedal or the dead man switch, the engine revs up and you have more drive speed. For steering, you have to squeeze the back little switch back here, and then when we push the switch to the right, tires turn to the right. Tires turn to the left when you're holding the switch left. On the back axle, you have to squeeze the switch, and then if you push this to the left, the tires turn to the right, and the opposite direction for turning to the left. To set up the outriggers, the operator's manual says that you have to have the tires off the ground and be level within 3 degrees. So standing here in the basket, that little bubble right there, it's a little spirit level. The outside red ring is 3 degrees, so the bubble needs to be inside of it, and the tires need to be off the ground. So to set the machine up, you step on the dead man switch, and these controls up here for the outriggers, and so you just hold them outwards, and they move down, and you can operate them all at the same time. Now, when the outriggers get close to touching the ground, you want to stop holding that button, because as soon as the outrigger takes weight, it slows the outrigger speed down, so that it makes it a little easier to set the machine up. Now we're working on a concrete road bed, so I'm not worried about outrigger pads. Now I'm going to stop pushing on that one. Either this one or the diagonal front one's going to be first, or they're going to be about the same speed. Alright, so now, make sure they're all touching. You can see how much slower they run now, and that's wide open. So we need to make sure all the tires are off the ground. Okay. That tire's off the ground. Now I'll worry about the other axle. You can see them dropping down. Now they're off the ground. Now if you look, we actually happen to be pretty leveled up right here. That inside red ring is 0 degrees. So we're perfectly fine to operate just like this. If you're operating on soft terrain or unknown terrain, you want to make sure that your outriggers have the suitable outrigger pads and or cribbing to properly distribute the load into the ground. Alright, when you're on your outriggers, all of these lights up here turn off. if one of your outriggers gets light, for example, I'm going to pick up this outrigger, you'll see the light come on when it stops holding any weight. So you can see up there, there's the outrigger, it's barely off the ground. So if you're in the air and one of these lights comes on, then you'll also see this light come on, which is warning you that an outrigger is getting light and you need to return to the ground and make sure that your machine is stable and reset it. So we'll put this outrigger back down, and as soon as it takes weight, it turns off. Another thing to notice is that when any of the outriggers are holding weight, the drive function is disabled. You can see I'm pushing the enable pedal, nothing's happening, you can't steer the axles, it's all dead, which means you can drive with the outriggers partially deployed, but you want to make sure that you're not going to run the outriggers into any obstructions, because that would obviously cause damage to both the machine and whatever you hit. Looking at the controls, I'm going to start off by telescoping away from the machines that's a little quieter. So to do that, you have to step on the enable pedal and then pull this one outward, and the boom starts to telescope. Now while we're telescoping, I'm also going to raise the bottom boom slightly, which is this lever, and the reason for that is you can't rotate with the bottom boom all the way down in its boom rest. So I push up on that one and I slow down a little bit on the travel extension speed. You can see the bottom boom is also raising. Now that we're up, I'm going to go ahead and extend on out, and we'll continue on. The top boom is fully extended, and we have the bottom boom raised out of its rest. Also, the top boom is slightly out of its rest, and so we'll continue on with the rest of the controls. I'm just going to stay standing on the dead man switch. Now, if we rev the machine up with this, when we stand on the dead man switch, the engine revs up, which can be handy if you're in a hurry, if you have to stretch out 50 feet to reach something. Well, then sometimes I'll rev the machine up to do that, but then when I'm taking down a tree, for example, and I'm just making small movements around the canopy, then I'll run it at the slower speed for fuel savings. Anyway, so I'll turn this back down. And now moving from right to left, this is the turret rotation, and you can see when you push it up, you rotate counterclockwise. It's also fully proportional. All the controls except for steering are proportional in the basket. Well, I guess the outrigger functions aren't either, but they move slow enough that doesn't really matter. And steering doesn't really need to be proportional either. Anyway, so that's basket rotation. Alright, the next lever is for the top boom elevation. So if you push it up, the boom moves upward. Pull it down, it moves downward. And if you just let it creep down, it creeps down. So it's all proportional. And that's what it sounds like when you hit the ground. Alright, the next function is the lower boom. Also, if you notice, you see how that's green, that's yellow. This tells you if you move the stick upwards, you get green. If you move the stick down, you get yellow. So it's all labeled very plainly. Anyways, and the next function is the lower boom. So if we push it up, the lower boom raises. And this is also proportional, just like all the rest. And if we pull it down, we lower. Alright, next up is the extension, which we've already done. But if you push it towards the machine, the boom retracts. And if you pull it away from the machine, the boom extends. And lastly, we have the basket rotation. If you push it upwards, we rotate counterclockwise. And if we pull it down, we rotate clockwise. Now, one that I just skipped is the jib. If you push the jib upwards, the jib rotates upward. It's also proportional. I mean, you can make it go as slow as you want to. or you can go as fast as it'll let you. And then if you pull it down, the jib comes down. Now if you need to get somebody's attention on the ground, you can just push the horn button. You don't have to step on the dead man switch. You can just give it a little toot. Hey, go get the chainsaw of the truck, or whatever's going on. But that's a basic overview of the functions. One exception is if you see this green light flashing, that means that either the PSYOPS is activated because something's pushing hard against the control panel, or you started the machine while you're sitting on the dead man switch. You can still move with that flashing, but you have to push the green button. Otherwise, all you have to do is, if you're pushing down the foot pedal, just let go. If there's anything pushing against the operator panel, take it off, and then push the pedal back down and you're back to normal operation. And so now I'm just going to show you the basket perspective of going to full height. So we have to step on the enable pedal or the dead man switch. I have the engine revved up. And here we go. So to start out with, I'm going to raise the bottom boom. And while I'm raising the bottom boom, I'm going to go ahead and telescope out. And if we slow down the two functions, we can multi-function. Some functions share a pump, other functions run on separate pumps. But I'm also running with one hand, so there's a limit to how much I can do. Now one way to know when you're fully extended is you see the backside of the steel part of the hose track has the adapter to go from the steel tube to the flexible chain, and that flexible chain gets to that steel hoop right there. That lets you know that you're as far up as as far out as you can go. So now the bottom boom is fully extended, top boom is fully extended. I'll go ahead and flip the jib up. And there you can see the metal adapter and the steel hoop right there. Alright, now the bottom jib, the jib is all the way up. And now we'll raise the top boom all the way. Which, like I said, you can multi-function, but that's kind of hard to do with one hand. Like right now our basket's not quite square to the boom, so I'm just going to push it a little bit. And that'll get us pretty close. Alright, so now we're all the way up. If we rotate, this will rotate us to the left. And the other way rotates us to the right. So pretty much anywhere that you can reach with the basket, assuming you have the machine properly set up, you have a 500-pound basket capacity, anywhere that you can reach, at up to 28 miles per hour. As well as up to a 90-pound side load on the boom, like if you're pulling or pushing on something. And from up here, here's the view. Down there is my shop, or compact equipment store. My feet are right at 64 feet. There's an airport right over there. The actual runway is down there. Right out there on the horizon is was going to be, or was supposed to be, or went belly up, Kior, which was supposed to be a wood chip to biofuel plant. This used to be the Omnova Manufacturing Center. So this is the view from approximately 70 feet up in the basket of a Nifty SD64. Alright, so we have some warning lights. This one is attached to a 10-degree tilt alarm, which is for when you're traveling, it'll let you know if you go over 10 degrees. The machine has 10 degrees of side hill stability and 24 degrees of hill climbing ability or grade ability. Obviously with it retracted on its tires, and the top boom is all the way in the boom cradle. The next light is for if an outrigger is getting light. There's a sensor in the tip of them, a little micro switch, and so if this alarm is going off, if this is going off, you'll also have a loud alarm. I say loud, an alarm that goes off, as well as the light will light up on whichever outrigger is light. You have a low fuel alarm, which still gives you, I believe it's 6 to 8 hours of operational ability. If your machine is equipped, this light lights up if you hit 500 pounds of weight in the basket, and then that's the low oil pressure. So if the engine's not running, by turning it off, obviously you have no alarms, everything's held in place just fine, perfectly safe. But for example, if the switch is turned on, then the computer thinks that the engine should have oil pressure, and so that lets you know, and that's the sound you would hear if for whatever reason you lost engine oil pressure. While you're way up here, you might not notice the engine is leaking its oil out because you swung it into a metal pole you didn't see, or whatever. So that's the example of that alarm. The tilt alarm and outrigger alarm are a bit louder and more noticeable. You can definitely hear them with earplugs in. By the same token, if you need to get someone's attention on the ground, we have a horn function, horn button, which it's nothing terribly manly about it, but it definitely is handy from time to time if you're trying to get somebody's attention and the wind's blowing and the engine's running and they're not looking up at you. You just give the horn a little push and get their attention. Alright, one more thing we have to cover is the muffling switch, which is this switch right here. As you can see right now, I'm retracted all the way down. Both the booms are sitting on the rest. With this switch, you can raise the basket for better visibility while you're driving, so you don't scrape the basket when you're going over hills, floating on ramps, things of that nature. The function you have at ground level that you don't have in the basket is the leveling of the basket, which is done with this switch here, and you have to push the enable button. So you just push and hold that and use that to level it.